Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. All things Middle Earth here, and if you are brand new starting in Lothlorien, you're going to start with this commander here, Arwen, not the one on the screen. I'll put a picture on the screen, but you're going to start with Arwen, and in this video we're going to talk about how to build her, what troops and suggest, gear, info on her relic, all that good stuff. So if you're wondering how to use Arwen, if you should use Arwen, that's all coming up in just 1 second. Now, it wouldn't be an At Me video if I wasn't promoting the top-up link, so if you guys have been here, I apologize, but if you're new here, we do have a top-up link. This is linked down in the description below. If you use this link to make purchases, it's the same as if you were making them in-game. You just log in with your UID in your server right here, and then it loads in your account. It's through NetEase, it's legit, all that good stuff. And the big thing is I get a small kickback from this. It's an affiliate link, so if you want to support the channel, if you are spending in the game, consider doing so. If not, no sweat. Let's go ahead and get into the video. All right, so starting out, I want to look at this tier list. This is a communal tier list we did after 2.0 had been out for a little while. This could probably be updated. It definitely could be updated, so don't take all of this for what it is. But I think 90-ish% of things are still very accurate. This hasn't been updated since the kind of mounted nerf, so like Theoden, Ymir, Hilden, and Thor, they shouldn't be as high as they are. But other than that, it's pretty accurate. And we, as a community, previously ranked Arwen in the C tier right here, near the end. Don't worry too much about where exactly they're ranked. She's in the C tier. So far, we've looked at Gimli, who's in the A tier. We've looked at Eomer, who's in the B tier, which he is still there. And then Arwen is, again, I think that's pretty accurate. Another step down from the other two. By the way, if you are wondering about the build guides for Gimli or Eomer, those will be linked up in the top right as well. If you started in Erebor or Gondor, you're going to have one of those guys. Or if you're just playing and want a good build for them, that's applicable to everyone. But anyway, those are those guys, but Arwen is down here in the C tier. Now, there could be an argument that she should be bumped up a little bit because there are some that I'm looking at on here that I just really do not think are good. And she does have some support capabilities, but as I'm going to show you in a second, it's not the most impressive kit in the world. But if you have her, you still want to know how to use her correctly, or maybe you just want to use her. Maybe you like the elves. I'm a big fan of using who you like and not just going into the mold of the meta every time, because everyone can just run the same, top 3 guys, whatever. But you might be someone who's like, no, I'm going to run Arwen and my favorite characters from the movies. And honestly, I think that's great. So I'm going to show you how I would build her if I was trying to run her in a competitive server. Now, the reason Arwen is kind of difficult to figure out is because she's trying to do too many things. So first of all, if you look at her Lady of Rivendell skill, it says deals focus damage twice. It gets increased focus damage and then extra focus for the commander, which by itself is not a bad thing. Commander damage is kind of king. So this is a good skill by itself, but with the rest of our kit, there's really nothing else to support it. So that's that skill. We then have Half Elven, which is going to increase the attack of elves or men in the formation and defense. So again, not a bad skill, but if you've been around a little bit, we've talked a lot about how units are just not the meta right now. It's commanders doing damage. So boosting these guys, while it's not going to hurt, is not something that's going to make her very, very good and competitive. So that's Half Elven. This skill is kind of an interesting one. If you've seen Isildur's kit, it's kind of like a mini Isildur in my mind. But it says defense of 3 allied formations plus 40, and it decreases by 1/5 each time. She also gets more attack for men units at the level 10 there. So that's, in my opinion, her best ability. And then lastly, she has a heal. Healing is just not good in the game at all. The best healers in the game are still not good. So Arwen with 1 heal, it's not even worth looking at. So for Arwen, the build that we're going to suggest for her is going to be her R5, the Queen of the Reunited Kingdom, which is going to give all of your allied units a little bit extra defense, a little bit more bulky. And then we're also going to run Lady of Rivendell. So we're going to be doing sort of a hybrid troop support with her own commander damage. And that's I think, going to be best case for her. Now, depending on who you're running her with, if you're running her with other commanders who really call for elves or men, you could definitely use Half Elven instead of Lady of Rivendell if it plays really nicely with everything else. But for the most part, I'm just not a huge fan of this stuff. But again, if you're running a whole army where there are lots of men and elves and you really need those and they're already being buffed, this could be an option for sure. But I definitely think that the extra damage from Lady of Rivendell is going to be better than the little bit of troop damage you get here. Now, as far as gear goes, this can be a little bit tricky. So I'm going to explain what we're doing here, and then it's going to look different for every account. Now, again, like I've said, I don't think Arwen's a world beater. She's maybe in the C tier. So would I personally try and make what would be considered best in slot gear for her for this build? Absolutely not. I think any gold gear that you're strengthening and refining has much better uses on better commanders. But again, if you just want to know what the build is or the general idea so you can make it yourself with maybe purples or whatever it is, I think that's a great option. So what we're going to focus on, as you can see here in the gear info, it says we're going to focus on unit defense and commander focus. Typically with pretty much any commander, you want to go into what they're already doing. So she's already boosting unit defense, so we want to kind of focus our gear on that. And then we're going to try and get some focus damage out of her from her top R1. So anything that has unit defense and focus is kind of what we're going for. More prioritizing unit defense than the actual focus, because she's not going to do a crazy amount of damage. So these are some gear options. We have a Noldor sword, we have the Elven cloak, we have the Swan helm, we have the Fiddle of the Eldest. Those are kind of the best in slot that have some unit defense and focus, a pretty good amount of both. We also have a Bow of the High Elves, Golden Skin, Call of the Forest, and Orthank's Devilry. Just different combinations so you guys can get the idea of what you can run with her. Now, again, there are other items that have higher of one or the other, or items that just have one or the other. So if you have a fine smoking pipe that gives her a lot of focus, that's not a bad one if you're going to boost the focus. But I think doing a little bit of both is kind of ideal for her. We also have the purple items. These are all purple items that have focus and unit defense, with more of an emphasis on unit defense. There's not a lot of options. These are really the only options, but it's the Elven Dirk, it's the Superior Hauberk, the Horseman's Helm, and then the Hobbit Fiddle. So those are going to be the gear suggestions for her. And as far as sets go, we're going to look at the kind of defensive, like sustainability sets. So down here we have suggestions, which are going to be Divide and Conquer, Evasive Action, and Fortitude. And again, anything that's going to help them be more tanky, stick around a little bit longer, that's kind of what we're looking at for the build. Now above me, I pointed out a few times, but just so you guys can see the skill prioritization above me, we're going to go to R5 first, followed by the top R1, and then the extra points are going to go into the R3 again, unless you're running something really specific where you are running a lot of men or elves, you do want these points, then you could obviously do that. The big thing is the R5. Whatever else she does is just going to be a little bit of extra on top. Now, suggested troops for Arwen are going to be the Guard of the Tower. You could also look at running Cataphracts. Basically, we want to still try and do as much resource effective bulky troops as we can, which Guards of the Tower fall into that category. I don't like them as much as Guardians, but she does, as you saw, give buffs to men and elves, in this case more so to men. So we're going to focus on that. Again, is it going to be a crazy amount? No. Could you just run Guardians? Be fine? Probably. But if you want to really kind of optimize everything that her kit is specifically doing, then they do work pretty well with her. Now, again, lots of other Elven and men commanders can kind of mesh together and try and buff these guys a little bit more. They could get more use, but it just depends on who you're running her with in your army. And like I said, Cataphracts can also be an option, basically just a more expensive, but also faster, and a little bit more bulky option. So if resources aren't an issue for you, want to try things out, I would probably go with them over Guards of the Tower just for the added HP. But again, if you're trying to kind of save resources and be really cost effective, Guards of the Tower are kind of the way to go. Now on to a Relic. And again, as you guys know, I like to just give Relics a quick pass or fail so you know if it's worth investing in. Now, hopefully it's clear. I don't think Arwen is super worth investing in unless she's just your favorite and you want to use her, which by all means, have fun with it. But like Gimli, like Éomer, there was already, with not even talking about the Relic, there was good investment with them. Arwen doesn't quite have that, and it's actually the same for her Relic as well. Her effect that we're going to look at here, again, outside of the bonus stats being helpful, which is the case for every commander, the actual effect she has says recovery effectiveness plus 2.5 all the way up to plus 15, and focus damage dealt plus 15 when the army includes both elves and men. So if your army out of all 4 of your commanders have elves and men, she's also going to deal some extra focus damage, which again is not a bad thing. If she had a second focus damage skill, this paired with that with the right setup could potentially be very good. But she has a pretty underwhelming focus skill, and that's it. So we're not going to go into a Relic just for that. And we've already talked about recovery. Healing is just not very good. So unfortunately, her Relic is going to get a fail. And that will pretty much do it for our guide video on Arwen. Again, not the most impressive, but if you like Arwen, have some fun. I think that's what makes this game exciting, is people that don't use the meta all the time. Now, again, I use the meta, trying to compete, but I like to try and run off meta stuff as much as I can. So honestly, I love when people try and run Elven builds or Dwarven builds that aren't quite meta, but they can make something work. So if you guys run an Arwen, let me know. Again, this whole build I did is a little bit speculation because I don't personally run an Arwen, as you can see here. I'm not going to lie to you guys and be like, oh, I've tested it, guys, it's great. But just looking at her stats and her kit, you can kind of see this is what she does best. So we're just going to support that. That's the whole idea. But if you guys have had success with her, let me know. Again, coming up very soon on the channel for all 3 commanders, because we've now covered our starting commanders for every faction we start with, which is Éomer, Gimli, and Arwen. We're going to be looking at a kind of army composition guide video. So who do you actually pair together? Because maybe you're starting with Arwen or Gimli or whoever it is, and you're wondering, who do I actually put them with? Because Arwen you're saying is support, we're saying Gimli's damage, we're saying Éomer's damage. What combination of support and damage do we need? you know, all that good stuff. So coming up very soon will be a kind of template guide video to show you guys how to put commanders together so you can see who works well together and who doesn't, so you can do as good as possible. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on that. That'll be coming out very soon, hopefully before the end of this week. So very, very soon in the next couple of days. But that'll do it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Hit the like button, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one.